In Caesarea, there was a man named Cornelius, a centurion of the Italian cohort, as it was called. He was a devout man who feared God with all his household. He gave alms generously to the people and prayed constantly to God. One afternoon at about 3 o'clock, he had a vision in which he clearly saw an angel of God coming in and saying to him, "Cornelius." He stared at him in terror and said, "What is it, Lord?" He answered, "Your prayers and your alms have ascended as a memorial before God. Now send men to Joppa for a certain Simon who is called Peter. He is lodging with Simon, a tanner, whose house is by the seaside." When the angel who spoke to him had left, he called 2 of his slaves and a devout soldier from the ranks of those who served him, and after telling them everything, he sent them to Joppa. About noon the next day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat, and while it was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw the heaven opened and something like a large sheet coming down, being lowered to the ground by its 4 corners. In it were all kinds of 4-footed creatures and reptiles and birds of the air. Then he heard a voice saying, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "By no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is profane or unclean." The voice said to him again a second time, "What God has made clean, you must not call profane." This happened 3 times, and the thing was suddenly taken up to heaven. This week, we're starting a series on visions and dreams. We're going to talk about the ways that visions and dreams play a significant role in the life of people in Scripture and in the lives of those of us who are trying to be faithful. Now, I want to name out loud that this can feel kind of trippy. The idea that maybe our dreams mean something or that we see something that other people can't see can make us feel really vulnerable or be unsure of ourselves. But I think there are enough of these stories in Scripture that we got to talk about it. In today's story, 2 folks actually had a vision or a dream. The difference between visions and dreams is really just whether you're awake. And honestly, when you're having an experience like this, how do we know? Are we awake? But what we understand is that Cornelius, a guy who was in the military, a faithful guy who was generous and ordered his household in a way that cared for other people, he found himself having this vision of an angel appearing to him and calling his name, Cornelius, and telling him to go meet with a guy named Simon Peter. At the same time, or close to it, Simon Peter finds himself hungry. He kind of falls asleep, and he has this dream about animals on a sheet coming down, and God saying to him, "Do not call unclean what I have called clean." Now, what we know about where Peter's coming from is that Peter has lived a holy life. Lots of stuff was unclean for him to eat. And so at first, probably Peter thought, wow, I get to eat whatever lunch I want. Hamburgers, bacon, come on my way. But what Peter began to understand in the vision 3 times was that the God who was meeting him in that vision was expanding the capacity, the breadth, the width, the depth of God's mission, and that expansion might be a little upsetting to religious people who'd been really good at following the rules. I love that God is patient with Peter repeatedly in Scripture, and that Peter gets to hear this 3 times, just in case maybe he wrote off the first 2. And so Peter and Cornelius interact with each other, and they have this moment where each of them recognizes that the other one is more than what they ever could have imagined. What the dreams and visions do in this story is build a bridge further than we could have built on our own. It opens Peter's eyes and his capacity to see where God is working. It opens Cornelius's heart to Simon Peter and maybe encourages him to take steps he would not have taken, bold steps in faith in connecting with the apostles. And so, one of the roles that visions and dreams play in our world is maybe a little courage, maybe an opportunity to zoom out, maybe a capacity to connect with Godness that is far beyond ourselves. And so these men who are faithful, who are trying to respond to God's goodness, offer what they have: alms, connection, generosity, holiness, their lives and their ministry. And then God expands that capacity, builds that bridge even further than they could have imagined. And the bridge is to each other. And so I wonder where God might be giving you a capacity to dream bigger, wider, deeper, much further than you would have dreamed on your own. Where God's dreams are opening your heart to people that you maybe didn't see or wouldn't connect with. And where God's dreams expand our capacity to understand how and when and where and why God works, and among whom God might work. May we be people who embrace God's dream.